Good morning, students, and welcome to today's computer class. Now, most of you are familiar with what a computer device is. Many of you have been studying about computers ever since class 3, the basic computer configuration, the fundamentals of computers, and other things. Now, I will just like to revise what you have left off in class 5. We will start from there. That is the basic configuration of a computer. Students, computer is an electronic device. Now, why is it called as electronic device and not electrical device? We need to understand that electronic device is a device which can process and handle instructions given to it. Any type of instructions which you are able to handle, those devices are electronic devices. Why only the computer? Even the microwave, for that matter, is an electronic device. Even your mobile phone is an electronic device. So, students, all those devices which are able to handle, store, and process any type of data may be classified as electronic device. Now, for that, we need to understand a certain configuration and the working of a computer. So before we go any further, my way of teaching is I would like to share the screen with all of you. And once I share the screen and I show you all the different components of the computer, we will then focus on the basic fundamentals working of the computer system. So first of all, as I would like to come and share my screen, and then I'll show you each slide. As we progress in this class, we will see each slide and classify these products into three base categories: input devices, memory and storage devices, and output devices. So that is how we are going to classify these products, or different what you call components or devices which we have within the computer system. So let me start sharing the screen. First, I'll show you the entire configuration of a computer, and then about the working of the computer. After that, we'll go on to input devices. Then we'll go on to memory units. And last of all, we will try to find out what are output devices. So I share my screen with you. And the first device, or rather the entire computer system, I'm just displaying to each one of you, trying to make best use of the screen. So I hope it is visible. This is just for you to revise exactly what you have studied in class 5. So many of you may be familiar with all these devices. Still a quick run through so that we understand basically what is the entire computer configuration or the unit classified as. So we start over here. You can see right here, these are speakers for the output. All of you may be knowing about all of this. Then we'll come a little lower and we'll see the monitor. This you can see is your computer monitor or your screen. Okay. Then you have the CD and the DVD drive, which is fitted in this CPU. You can see it highlighted here. This is a standing CPU. It may be also a different type of CPU. You have different types of CPUs, which you get in different models and shapes. This one over here has got the CD drive in this position. Then this entire thing is your, what we call the CPU generally. We just identified, but it is actually the system unit. We call it CPU. CPU is not the correct word, but it is called as your system unit because it has the different type of ICs, the different hard disk configuration, CD configuration, DVDs, drives, and other type of motherboards, etc., RAM card, ROM card, everything is installed within the system unit. Then you see over here is your printer device. This particular device is known as your printer device. You can see the printer attached. You may have a different type of printer. You may have an inkjet printer, or you may have a laser printer, or whichever type of printer you are working with. You may even attach a plotter or high-end devices to this when it comes to outputting or taking printouts of your data. Then hard drive, as you all know, we'll come to this later, or the hard disk, which is installed within the system unit. The hard disk is generally not detachable. It is installed like the CD and the DVD drive. It is attached here. Yes, you do have portable hard disk. Yes, we will talk about that in this chapter later on. But for now, just remember the hard disk we are talking about is a hard disk which is installed within this. Okay. Then we come to the flash memory drive. This is another type of a card reader, as you may call it. It is also known as a flash memory card reader. Sometimes we need to use the floppy disk. So you can see over here the floppy disk drive. Now these drives are nowadays obsolete. Not many of us use these type of drives. We don't require these, but in the older systems, the floppy disk drive was very much there. Then of course, all of you have seen your mouse, which can be a rollerball mouse or an optic mouse, whichever mouse you are working with, right? It can be a cordless mouse or it can be a USB connected mouse. You all know about this cordless and USB mouses and have worked with it also. So we will elaborate about all these topics in this particular chapter, which we will be revising, and along with that we will be taking a little bit of part which will be of your present class 6. So all of you will be able to incorporate all that particular thing into one chapter. While we are revising the previous chapter's work, that is of class 5 computer system, I will also incorporate a few devices which will be relevant to this particular class and this particular portion of class 6, so that we are not wasting our valuable time. And then after that, we all seen CD and DVD disc. All of you are familiar with CD and DVD disc. You can see these CD and DVD disc, which I will explain in detail in my next classes, which are going to follow up. We have the keyboard over here. This is your computer keyboard. All of you are familiar with this type of a keyboard in your homes. It is all a separate type of keyboard is provided if you're using a all-in-one. Then if you're using a laptop, this type of keyboard is already installed along with the laptop. It is fitted into the laptop. And of course, if you're using the conventional system, that is the computer which you call as your PC unit or your personal computer, then you have to attach your keyboard to this particular system unit. Then you have floppy disk, which many of you may have seen as they are obsolete, but still they are very much available in the market. However, they store very little information, and also the processing being slow, they are nowadays no longer being used much. And of course, your microphone through which you can speak. You can either have this type of microphone, or you can even have a microphone which can be attached to your collar, or then you have inbuilt microphones in all the systems nowadays. There may be a few changes and innovations as time passes by, so all of you understand that. So this is basically one bigger look at what is your computer particular. This is your whole computer system, right? So Now, I would like to switch to my next slide. And the next slide which we have, I want you all to have a closer look at this particular slide properly. This is the computer system block diagram. I'll try and make it a little bigger. At the same time, I would like to. So I want you all to pay special attention here. This is your computer system block diagram. And I want all of you to try and understand that this computer system block diagram is about the working of the computer system. This in itself shows you the different types of devices or units, as you call it, and how they work with each other. So please pay attention to this particular diagram and try and understand the working of the computer system. It is very important that we all understand how any type of computer system or unit functions. Now here I am talking not only of your PC all-in-one, I'm also talking of your laptop, and I'm also talking about your tablets. So all these computer devices are basically the same type of working, but more of my concentration I'm going to give is on your PC and your laptops. That is the computer system which we are talking about. So we start with input devices. Students, you have studied over these years and in all these classes that input devices are devices which are used for entering data into the computer system. Now those devices basically are keyboard, mouse, joystick, right? And other types of devices in the form of MICR, that is magnetic ink character recognizer, optical character recognizer. All these you may have studied about. So what I want you to do now, students, is I want you not only to open your 5th class book, but also correlate with your 6th class book. Please open your 6th class book, and on the very first page, that is page number 2, you will find this block diagram. I'm talking about the 6th class book, and this is also be present in your 5th class book. It is important that we understand the computer system block diagram, right? So for that, I'm trying to explain over here. So just over there, you can see the block diagram, which is not very elaborated in your books. So I have made a little elaborate diagram for you to understand. So input devices, they may be different types of input devices. We'll study each of these in detail. For now, I'm just presuming that the keyboard, mouse, barcode reader, magnetic ink character, any other device which are input devices, the data is entered from these devices. That's why they are called as input devices, because they are used to enter the data into the computer system. Once this data enters, it enters into what we call as the central processing unit block. This is a complete central processing unit block. In the central processing unit, that is the CPU, we have the ALU, that is the arithmetical logical unit, meant for taking arithmetical and logical decisions. For now, you just remember this much. I'm not going to elaborate much, as we will study about it in detail in the higher classes. So ALU means arithmetical logical unit. It is meant for making arithmetical calculations and logical decisions. Then you have the control unit, which is essential for controlling the flow of data. And last of all, you have the memory unit. Now this memory unit, students, when I speak of, this is the primary memory unit. Many of us say that the memory unit, we try to understand that this memory unit may be consisting of even floppy disk or DVDs. No, this is the memory unit which I'm talking about basically consists of your cache memory and your ROM memory. You may have heard in the previous classes that the primary memory consists of ROM and RAM. Yes, but when we speak of the memory unit in particular, within the central processing unit, we are only speaking about the ROM memory, read-only memory. And within the read-only memory, we have the BIOS, that is the basic input-output system. This is a small file which, before your operating system is loaded, it triggers or activates your computer. I repeat, this memory unit which I am speaking about consists of the ROM. I am not talking of the RAM. I'll come to the RAM later. Yes, it is over here, very much over here. The RAM is also a part of this unit. But I am talking of the memory unit. In particular, I am talking about the ROM. So memory unit, when we talk of basically, or the primary memory of a computer, we are talking of the ROM and the RAM. But within the CPU, the memory unit, which is basically important for loading or starting a computer, is present in the form of a BIOS, B-I-O-S. That is the BIOS, basic input-output system. And this basic input-output system is present within the ROM chip. So this is the memory unit I'm talking about. Along with this ROM, we also have the RAM. RAM, students, is that part of the data which is held temporarily. It is given for temporary holding data. It is a very, very essential part in any device to have a RAM. And the larger the RAM, you all know, the faster is your computer speed. For that matter, even in the mobiles, if I talk about, even if you buy a mobile, generally along with the processor and along with the secondary speed, the storage, we are looking also for the RAM. Why do we look for the RAM? Because it is basically the RAM which helps in transferring the data from one device to another device. Okay, I always give this example that the RAM is like a mediator. It is like a pipeline which helps to transfer data which you are inputting to maybe into the CPU for processing or then even for outputting. So the higher the RAM, the faster is the rate of transfer of data between the different devices. So coming to the RAM, I said RAM is a part of the internal memory or the main memory. One and the same thing. The primary memory, the internal memory or the main memory classify as RAM and ROM. These are classified into RAM. RAM is random access memory. This memory is temporarily. As soon as the computer is switched off, whatever is held in this type of memory gets deleted. It does not hold there permanently. But it is important. Why? Because this type of data, whatever is held, is transferred. The bigger the RAM, the faster is the rate of transfer from one device to another device. Whereas the ROM, which is basically present in the, and its function is for the memory unit, it is a permanent memory. And permanent in the form, it has the BIOS setup. We cannot write anything into this because this basically is held for the basic input-output file system which is already configured or written while using it to trigger the operating system. And the other part is used for storing the system drivers. System drivers are those which help the operating system to load or function. I am talking of the operating system. Now, all of you may be familiar with the operating system in class 5. We have studied that there are different types of operating systems. When we talk of computers, we generally speak of Windows. Whether we speak of Windows 7, Windows 8 or Windows 10. These are all operating systems. Windows is an operating system. Similarly, we have Android. Android is meant for mobiles. All mobiles, most of the mobiles work on Android. Of course, Apple uses its own iOS, right, in the form of Macintosh for computers and iOS for mobiles. So these are operating systems. Other than this, you may have heard of the name of Linux, Red Hat, Solaris. These are different types of operating systems available in the market. But the most familiar and the most used is Windows. So please don't confuse Windows with the Microsoft Office pack. Many of us don't know the difference. Microsoft Office, yeah, MS Office is an application package which consists of Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Access. That is an application package, Microsoft Office. And Microsoft Windows, which I'm talking about, is the operating system. So coming back over here, I said the RAM and the ROM are integral parts of the computer system as they play a very, very important part in the working of the computer or starting of the computer system. So this is a little important for you to understand. That's why I'm taking a little extra time, because many of you are not familiar, or even if you are familiar, you are not very right about the explanation. You don't know correctly how it functions. Then we come to the other part, which is in the form of the hard disk and the CD. These are memory units. Memory units, when I talk, these are secondary memory units, or we call this as a secondary memory, hard disk and CD. This RAM is a part of your primary memory. Don't look at this block diagram and think that this is present within the memory. It is a part of the memory unit, but which memory unit? It is a part of the primary memory unit. And hard disk, CD, DVD, for that matter, floppies, or even pen drives, these are part of the secondary memory units. I hope this is very clear, because this is very important for you. And last of all, this data flows out after being processed. We'll come to this part of the ALU, the control unit and the memory unit, when I'm speaking about memory in detail. In this chapter, we will study about memory after we study about input devices. Then I'll explain the functioning of this also a little elaborately. But for now, that is all. Now, once this data is entered from here through the input devices, it comes into the central processing unit. Depending on the requirement, it has to be arithmetically and logical unit, does the arithmetical logical operations, controlling the memory unit. If any type of data needs to be processed, that is processed, and then it is either stored in the secondary unit, or then it is sent to the output devices in the form of the monitor, printer, or speaker, or even plotters for printing. So this is how the computer system functions. Now we come to another little diagram, and I just want to once again show it to you, overview of the CPU, to show you the flow of data, students. Now this is only of the CPU. We are not talking of input devices. We are not talking of output devices. We are only talking of the CPU. So please try to understand this particular part. Sorry. So as you can see, this red color arrows, these are the data. You can see over here. And this is the control. Now what is the data and the control? Control are instructions. Any type of instructions given to any device is called as the control. And what is data? Data is whatever processed results or unprocessed results and information which we need to transfer from one device to another. That is called as data. I repeat, data is processed or unprocessed instructions or information. And control means the manner in which this data is required to be transferred. So just pay a little attention to this. Again, I am speaking main memory over here. Now the main memory, as I told you, consists of RAM and ROM. Now in the main memory, you can see that data is related to the input output. From the input device, you can see, and the out, this is the arrow going. You can see data comes from the input device into the main memory, which consists of the RAM and the ROM. Then from here, this data may be processed and it goes back if not required. One way is this to the output device, right? Here this main memory then transfers the data over here. This is the cache memory. The cache memory, as I spoke about, this cache memory is a small little area present within the computer system for storing data. And I told you this is when I'm speaking of the cache memory or the BIOS. These are parts of the ROM memory. Then you come to the arithmetical logical unit and the control unit. Now these all work together with each other in tandem, depending on the requirement of whatever data needs to be transferred. So from the cache memory to the ALU and to the control unit and back to the cache memory, this type of control can be transferred. This is the controls basically where the data is interlinked and it can be transferred. Once this data which is entered from here into this memory, then the control whether this data has to be sent to your backup memory in the form of auxiliary storage, that is, we are talking of the hard disk, DVD, floppy disk, or it needs to be transferred back to the RAM and the ROM memory, which is the primary memory, or it needs to be transferred to the input, or it needs to be transferred from the output device. So this is the processing depending on the type of instruction. There is no fixed flow, but this is the general working. You need not learn this up. This is just for your information that I'm explaining, that this is how it functions. This is how the data functions over here. So many of you are confused. How is the input and output device with the CPU? What is the use of them and how are they linked and what is their job? So I'm just explaining to you how the functioning of the CPU is. So within the CPU, we have the main memory. These are parts of the CPU, but they have got nothing to do with the control and the flow of data. You transfer the data into this CPU from the main memory, whichever it is, then the CPU, that is the cache memory, ALU and the control unit in tandem control the flow of the data and send back the data to the main memory. Or then from the main memory, this data is then transferred into your backup or your auxiliary memory. This main memory also transfers the data back to your input or your output device as the need and the requirement is. Not every time do we need to store data onto a CD or a floppy disk. we may need to directly take a printout. We may not want to store the data. So in that case, this is trying to show you that from the main memory, you can even send the data directly onto the output device or take it from the input back into the output device without having to store it into the hard disk. But it needs to be processed, and for that processing, this particular central processing unit is a must. So this is a basic fundamental which I have tried to give you in this particular chapter, and tomorrow when I start my class, I will explain to you in detail about the input output, that is all the types of input devices. We'll take one unit, input units, then we'll try to take the storage units, and last of all we'll take the output devices. And for that, I want you all to please open up to your books of class 5, since this is a revision part of whatever you have done in class 5, and it is also there in class 6. So I am only trying to take those chapters which are already there in class 5 and will also be continued in class 6. So we don't waste our valuable time. So that is all for now, and in our next class we will see about input devices. So students, that is all, and I hope stay safe, stay healthy, all of you, and that is all for now.